Crystal always had a great spirit about her. She knew what she wanted, she went for it.
To jump out of a perfectly
Jumping
good airplane.
out of a plane.
She could take care of herself.
I didn't punk out like a sissy girl.
She was obviously very beautiful, very attractive, but there was something about her. She radiated light. I worked with Crystal as a flight attendant. She was definitely a goofball, and she would even describe herself as a dork.
She kind of has like a gypsy soul, like she was a flight attendant, you know, she just likes traveling.
I've been dating Crystal McDowell for a few weeks now. We'd both been divorced, and we knew exactly what we wanted. You know, when you first meet somebody and you're kind of on cloud nine, that's kind of how we were.
Tropical storm Harvey is expected to strengthen into a hurricane before making landfall in Texas. Hurricane warnings in place along most of the Texas coast.
Friday morning, August 25th, is when she left the house.
She was actually living with her ex-husband. She was living in the master bedroom downstairs, and he had moved into a bedroom upstairs.
He had such a passion of love for her. It was almost like an obsessive, controlling love.
She sent me a few text messages, and I replied back, but I never got a reply after that. So I thought maybe she was just preoccupied with getting ready for the storm.
Across southern Texas, grocery store shelves are bare. People are rushing to stock up on last-minute supplies.
At that point in time, I just started trying to find relatives or friends to reach out to them to see if they knew where she was. And that's when I reached out to Jeff Walters. He's her uncle.
I get messages from her every morning. I get messages all throughout the day. She's one of the most responsible people that I know. She never loses contact with us.
Chambers County Sheriff's Office.
It's my niece.
Okay, your niece.
No one can get a hold of her. No one has heard from her. And I'm really concerned.
It's a serious storm. It's going to last 4 or 5 days, and quite frankly, this is day one.
This morning, police are searching for a Texas mother who mysteriously disappeared before Harvey hit.
We are hampered by some of the flood issues, but we are as aggressive as ever trying to locate Crystal McDowell.
I knew she wouldn't run away. She would never be that type of person. So that was...
Would she have ever left her kids?
No.
Happy birthday to you.
Automatically, as a sheriff, I know that mothers don't leave their children. And there's obviously never a good time for anybody to become missing. But the timing was terrible.
Was there a part of you that just went, it can't get any worse?
On more than one occasion.
My gut tells me there's something catastrophically wrong with this scenario.
By the time floodwaters receded, authorities believed one of 3 men knew where Crystal was.
Got the boyfriend, got the ex-husband. Well, then the uncle was making such noise about everything, I started thinking about him.
21 months later, one would be on trial for murder.
Try to get a boat out here.
Watch the water, man. Watch it lift the baby.
Baytown has picked up 32.9 inches.
The house is totaled, all my furniture is totaled.
Can you get to the top of your vehicle?
It was horrible. The rain wouldn't stop. It just would not stop.
District Attorney Cheryl Leek says despite the horrific flooding from Hurricane Harvey in Baytown, Texas, a suburb of Houston, the investigators were determined to find Crystal McDowell.
We had deputies that were flooded out of their homes. One of our investigators lost his entire house. Our local Texas Ranger and his wife were flooded out of theirs.
And yet they showed up for work.
Yep.
Every day.
Yep. Everybody.
All day looking for this woman.
Everybody.
But weather was not their only challenge. If Crystal had met with foul play, the sheriff says there was a growing list of people to question.
She was extremely social. She had lots of friends. She had been a flight attendant for 10 years and then had become a real estate agent.
On the top of the list, Crystal's Uncle Jeff, who cared for Crystal after her parents died when she was 11 years old.
And our main objective is just to get Crystal back home.
He was the person that was extremely emotional and reported her missing, but then he kept getting in the way of the investigation.
Getting in the way by going through Crystal's townhouse with other family members, potentially tainting important evidence.
This is not a game to us. This is not a hobby. This is what we do.
Crystal's family even hired a private investigator.
But you don't bring on some amateur super sleuth wannabe when you're in the middle of a missing persons investigation.
Also on the list, the men romantically linked to Crystal. There was Steve McDowell, Crystal's ex-husband, a shipping manager. In June 2017, the couple went through what many described as an amicable divorce after 10 years of marriage and 2 children, a boy Madden and a girl Maui.
And what was his story for Friday morning?
That she never showed up, that she was supposed to show up and she just never did.
That morning at 7:01 on August 25th, Steve, who had the kids, says he received a text message from Crystal. It read, "On my way. Do you have water? Looks like I may stay here with the kids. It seems just like rain." But Uncle Jeff Walters says that Steve showed him another text that Crystal allegedly sent around 9:30 that morning, saying she had changed her mind and she planned to stop by, pick up the kids, and take them to Dallas.
They just said it just didn't sound like her, and that nobody knew where she was, nobody had heard her voice, and they just knew that something wasn't right.
What did he tell authorities about their marriage, their relationship?
He told them that they were fine, he didn't mind the divorce, and everything was just hunky-dory.
In fact, Crystal was living with Steve and the kids in a house she helped him buy while her townhouse was being renovated.
He had such a passion of love for her that it was almost unhealthy.
Cindy Searate is Crystal's aunt.
Like if she wanted her feet rubbed, he would rub her feet. If she wanted her hair brushed, he would brush her hair.
Is it fair to say that she wore the pants in the family?
Yes, most definitely.
But over time, they grew apart.
He didn't challenge her, was the word. She wanted to be the best she could possibly be, and Steve was okay with just stepping back, being, the house person.
He was the dad. She was more of the provider.
Krista McDowell, Steve's daughter from a previous relationship, was at Texas A&M University when she heard the news Crystal was missing.
Because he loved being around the kids. They're his life. She was his life, and they were his life.
To the sheriff, it certainly didn't seem like Crystal's ex-husband knew anything about her disappearance.
But he was very cooperative with us, very, very kind, very friendly, and he immediately says that he wants to help.
It was Crystal's new boyfriend, Paul Hargrave, who the sheriff really wanted to speak with. Paul owned a local jewelry store and had been dating Crystal for a few weeks.
The last place that we have her is in the Baytown area, leaving Paul's house.
She seemed in love with him. They seemed perfect together. She was happy.
So happy that Crystal had posted on Facebook just 2 days before she disappeared. "I've never been happier in my whole life than I am right now. God is so good."
Well, we had talked about going to Europe, and she got a ticket to go with me to Belgium next month.
Investigators would learn Crystal had also invited Paul to go on a family cruise. The only caveat? Steve, her ex-husband, was going too.
And I told her, well, gosh, I'd love to go, but I think it's going to be awkward for me to be there with the ex-husband. So she had asked him to refrain from going, and I know that didn't go well. She had stressed to me that he was pretty upset about that.
Which is why, Paul said, he was deeply concerned when Crystal disappeared after she left his home in her black Mercedes, which was also missing.
I hope and pray that, she's okay and she's going to come back to us.
So he went on national TV and spoke with CBS This Morning's Michelle Miller.
What do you think happened to her?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But we're just trying to focus on finding her and assisting the police with whatever we can assist them with.
But Sheriff Hawthorne says he became suspicious after Paul failed to tell authorities about security footage from his home, showing the last time Crystal was seen alive.
She actually walked right through this living room at 7:09. One of my cameras picked that up. I think she was seen leaving the driveway at 7:10.
Paul shared the tapes, not with investigators, but with the media.
So immediately we're like, well, why would he be turning it over to the media, but yet my investigators don't have those videos?
Intentional or oversight on his part?
I don't know, because it took us a few days to get it. So obviously every hour that ticked off, he became the sheriff's person of interest, that's for sure.
Surrounded by the chaos of both a natural disaster and suspicious characters, the case stalled. Mostly, says the sheriff, because investigators couldn't agree on which direction to go in.
Some of the investigators that were involved in this would say, I think it's Steve, and some would say, I still can't get over Jeff, and I'm still looking at Paul.
See this black car right here? This Mercedes?
But then, finally, a break in the case. Crystal's Mercedes was spotted by a friend.
I will give the family credit for finding that vehicle.
So now they knew where the car was, but who put it there? And what would they find inside?
Weather and time deteriorate evidence, physical evidence.
The cops were here busting in doors to find out where this lady is.
How are you, Brian Hawthorne?
Sheriff Hawthorne could not believe what he found when he arrived at Crystal's Mercedes in the Motel 6 parking lot.
Well, you could get in the car because it was unlocked and the keys were sitting on the console.
Did that strike you as odd?
Oh, very odd. My criminal investigation captain told me, he said, I feel like it's been staged.
Set up for someone to take it?
Correct.
But whoever had left the car there to be taken did not anticipate the massive flooding in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey.
The water had risen. You couldn't get it out of the parking lot.
And that was finally a break in your direction.
Correct.
Crystal's Mercedes was finally towed from the motel and processed. But floodwaters in Houston made it impossible to get results back from the crime scene lab.
A lot of their majors and captains and sergeants and investigators' homes were going underwater. It was chaos for everybody.
There are just a lot of moving parts at this point.
We're just going to get this thing started, y'all, and
48 hours was granted unprecedented access inside the sheriff's war room.
In interviewing Stephen, he was telling us he was making calls from certain locations. He didn't make those, he was actually mobile. He is denying knowing Paul existed until 2 days ago. I don't believe that.
The investigation had taken a toll on D.A. Leake, who had lost all hope.
I know she's dead. There has been no activity on any of her credit cards, debit cards, nothing, and she doesn't have a cell phone. Nobody leaves anymore without a cell phone.
Sheriff Hawthorne, deputies, and Texas Rangers expanded their focus from finding Crystal to finding her killer.
We've got a handful of folks that need to be interviewed. What else do you guys see that's up on this board that we need to get done? Because this stuff's going to start drying up on us if we don't jump on it.
Paul is just soaking up all the attention.
Yeah, he is, and
he loves it.
And he's best buddies with Uncle Jeff, too. That's what I don't understand. It's getting more and more interesting about Uncle Jeff, isn't it? As of about midnight last night, the net has widened, and it's husband, boyfriend, uncle.
Early in the investigation, the top persons of interest had been brought in for questioning. In his police interview, Paul pointed the finger at Steve.
Did you have anything to do with the disappearance?
Absolutely not. I don't understand even that's been insinuated, and I don't like it.
Jeff Walters was no fan of Crystal's new boyfriend, Paul.
He reminds me of Hannibal Lecter, and he creeps me out.
And Steve stuck with his story, that Crystal never showed up at his house.
We polygraphed two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Steve and Paul?
Steve and Paul, that is correct.
And how did they do?
Steve failed, and I'll let Paul tell you how he did.
He insinuated, he didn't use those terms, but he called me a liar.
But security cameras don't lie. Focusing on the location of the car, deputies began gathering video from nearby businesses. A camera at a Shell gas station next door to the motel appears to have captured one of their 3 persons of interest.
It looks like he's getting out and he's putting something in the trash can, and he's stuffing it all the way down, like to his elbow.
Like a bag, or?
Yeah, it looked like clothing is what it looked like.
Deputies say it is Steve McDowell, and it's what McDowell keeps glancing at that makes the investigators sit up and take notice. The Motel 6.
You could see that he's looking over, and he's looking to see if the car is still there, and it was. We recovered the trash can, and the problem is all the contents had floated out of it.
Because of the hurricane?
Because of the storm.
Then investigators received different security video showing Steve in action, right in the Motel 6 parking lot.
You just see somebody park the car, and someone that resembles her ex-husband getting out of it.
And what does that say to you?
Says that my person of interest has changed. I remember I'm the one that's still looking at Paul.
The videos are purely circumstantial evidence, but
That's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
for the first time, investigators are all heading in the same direction.
Confront Steve about where is she.
But Steve was still insisting he had nothing to do with Crystal's disappearance.
This is what I carry.
So they turned to someone else in the family's inner circle for help. Crystal's aunt, Cindy Searate.
I said, Cindy, I need you to stay close to Steve. I said, we need communication, and he may not communicate with us, and he may communicate with you.
Every day. I was just praying every day that I went that he would say something.
Investigators were becoming increasingly frustrated.
When you have no body, that's a huge hindrance. The way someone's killed, where they're found, that generally can give you an idea of who killed them.
Hi, guys and gals. We've been asked by Chambers County to go ahead and search for Crystal.
Deputies called upon an experienced volunteer search and rescue organization, Texas EquiSearch, to help find Crystal.
Let's remember that this place flooded real bad, so if she was dumped in this area, let's hope that she got washed up in maybe some tree lines and stuff, did not end up in the water.
Paul joined the searchers, and Uncle Jeff Walters pitched in.
He's offered a $10,000 reward, and I offered a $5,000 reward.
The more investigators dug in, the more things didn't quite add up.
This is a case about lots of secrets, double lives on many people's parts. It's one of those cases, I think I've seen it all. I've never seen anything like this before.
What are you doing today?
About to jump out of a perfectly good
Jumping
airplane.
out of a plane. Whose idea was this?
Steve.
Steve, your idea?
5 years before her disappearance, it seemed like Crystal and Steve McDowell were on top of the world.
How high are we right now? What does that say?
6,000 feet.
The jump had been a 33rd birthday gift from Steve.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. That's what's up. Hey, high five. Hey, look, your husband lived too. What a bonus.
Now Crystal's ex-husband was the main person of interest in her disappearance. There were those security tapes. And DA Cheryl Leak says they had discovered Steve had lied about their so-called friendly divorce.
What did you find out as the investigation went along?
That he didn't want the divorce. What we were getting from the family is that he was distraught, had always been distraught every time she tried to leave him.
It was early on when things started not going well.
L.J. Adams, a bail bondsman and Crystal's good friend, says the relationship was troubled right from the start.
Judging from the things that she said, Steve McDowell is a very, very self-centered, selfish, manipulative person. He just got to where he wanted things his way, and he wanted it that way and right now. And if it didn't work out or she couldn't do it at that moment, it would be a temper tantrum.
In 2008, just 1 year after they married, Crystal filed for divorce. But LJ says she didn't go through with it back then because Steve had made threats.
It was always like, well, if you leave me, I'm just going to kill myself.
Emotional blackmail.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. But he knew what to say and what to do.
Extra.
But Krista McDowell says her father is not that man. She knows him as a loving father with a playful side.
He's a really goofy guy. That's the best way I could describe him.
Fun guy?
Fun guy.
And even though her father was in and out of her life for most of her childhood, there was a brief period of time when she lived with Steve and Crystal.
I was in high school, so it was 8th grade to sophomore year. I guess I was 14 to about 16.
She admits the relationship between Crystal and her father was turbulent, but says he was not the only one at fault.
Both weren't perfect, and they both had their issues. I just think that they were very toxic for each other, and they made each other crazy. Whenever they were together, it was never a happy ending.
She was hopeful things would get better once they finally got divorced. But after Crystal officially filed the paperwork in February 2017, Krista says her father began acting strangely.
So in March, I noticed that my dad had been acting weird on Facebook. Then he also changed his profile pictures to it was a grave, and then it was a Grim Reaper profile picture. And then he made it a picture of him and Crystal. And then he took that off, and then he made it say no profile picture.
In a short period of time?
This was all in a matter of 2-3 days.
Sheriff Hawthorne would learn that shortly after Crystal filed for divorce, she had called 911 and told police that Steve had disappeared with their kids.
She had given Steve the kids, and he essentially did not bring the kids back.
For a few days?
For a few days.
And did he threaten to hurt himself and the kids?
Had kind of put out an allegation and a threat that, he would harm himself and Crystal and the kids.
Steve eventually returned the children unharmed, and no charges were filed. He later explained to his daughter that he had become upset after discovering that Crystal had numerous affairs while they were married.
But he said he was still in love with her?
Yes. And he said, I love her with all my heart, but I just can't let her keep tearing me down like this.
So he was okay with getting a divorce at that point?
He was accepting of it. He thought it was for the best. He thought maybe he could, get his life in order then.
But Crystal's Aunt Cindy says Steve was just not ready to let go. Remember that cruise they were supposed to go on? Cindy says Steve actually planned to propose to Crystal again, even though they had just been divorced.
He literally bought some clothes for both of them, a white dress and a white suit, and literally he was going to propose.
But Krista says her father told her this was all his ex-wife's idea.
My dad told me just the other day that she had mentioned, how would you feel about getting remarried on the cruise? It's like a fresh start.
Do you think that's true? That she said that to him?
Yeah.
I don't believe Crystal would ever lead him to believe that. I really don't.
This was a fantasy in his head?
I believe that.
In early August, it seemed Crystal had moved on and was dating Paul Hargrave. Cindy Seawright says at first, Crystal tried to keep it a secret from Steve, even though she was still living with him.
And she said, Aunt Cindy, I have to keep this quiet. He will kill me.
But by August 23rd, just 2 days before she disappeared, Crystal made that Facebook post and had disinvited Steve from the cruise. DA Leak thinks this might have been the start of Steve's final unraveling.
Steve was probably more upset about not going on the cruise because he thought they were going to rekindle their romance.
And there was more.
She was a financial meal ticket to him.
LJ Adams says Crystal had recently decided to cut Steve off financially.
Because he was just spending money, just ridiculously just spending money. And at that point, she just said, I can't do this anymore, Steve.
Was it just losing her, Cheryl, or was it he was losing his whole life? Someone else was sliding into his position.
His whole life, his whole lifestyle.
As cleanup from Hurricane Harvey was underway, investigators had cleared Paul Hargrave and Crystal's Uncle Jeff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
They were now convinced Steve McDowell had the motive to murder his ex-wife and that he had dumped her car at the Motel 6. But how did he get home? This security video from a nearby Walmart would provide that answer.
We spot a bicycle on the service road, Interstate 10 service road.
Investigators were convinced it was Steve McDowell.
For you, the surveillance footage is the turning point in the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Authorities were closing in on Steve McDowell, and the stakes were only getting higher because he still had the children.
We could potentially be minutes or hours away from somebody losing control.
Again. It's almost life or death for these kids.
Correct.
He kept coming in and talking. He'd come in every day and sit there 5 hours or so and just, nope, wasn't me.
District Attorney Cheryl Leak knew Steve McDowell had killed Crystal. But knowing it and proving it were two different things.
We didn't have enough to arrest him.
And she says McDowell seemed to understand that.
Was he arrogant, helpful, cooperative?
Arrogant and aloof. There was a game. He's just gaming us, he thinks. At this point, we have no direct evidence. We just have circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence has as much weight in a court as direct evidence, but you just need more of it.
Leak says the evidence that finally brought the case home for her was that security video from this Walmart, showing how McDowell probably got home after ditching Crystal's car.
We had him buying the bike and riding it out.
What happens next?
We bring him back in.
Day after day, investigators were telling McDowell they were successfully gathering more and more evidence, a ploy to wear him down.
He was just like melting, You could see that it was getting to him. You could tell he wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping. His face had sunken in.
There's no telling what Steve may be trying to tell the kids. That's the reason.
Sheriff Brian Hawthorne says investigators were under pressure too.
We can't wait.
And deeply concerned about just how much might be too much for McDowell.
At the time when all this is taking place, he has got custody of his children.
I kept thinking, he's going to kill those kids. He's going to kill those kids.
Once again, Steve voluntarily came in for questioning. But Cheryl Leak wasn't taking any more chances. She'd been in touch with Family and Protective Services and convinced the agency to remove the McDowell kids from his home that evening and place them with their Aunt Cindy.
We knew psychologically that that would be the final straw for him, his kids being gone.
He would have nothing left.
Right.
And what was his response?
He just about collapsed
Exhausted, McDowell said he wanted to go home, but promised he would return in the morning ready to talk.
He said, "I'll tell you everything."
Without enough evidence to arrest him and knowing a full confession was their only real chance of finding Crystal's body, the sheriff allowed his prime suspect to walk out the door.
That was a big risk that he wouldn't run or kill himself.
It was a risk.
I've been a crime reporter for 25 years. I have never heard of a department saying, go home and get your affairs in order. I mean, that's the part I go, really? Like, they let him go home?
But see, this is the thing. We had the kids.
And taking them is a moment Sheriff Hawthorne will never forget.
We knew that these kids were probably never going to see their mother again.
Or their father, as a free man.
Or their father as a free man. Can you give me a minute?
Yes.
Both of the children came out and gave every one of us bear hugs. And that's when you realize the totality and the impact that family violence has on children.
A few hours after Steve McDowell's youngest children were taken from him, he summoned his older daughter, Krista, to come home from college immediately.
I was at work, and I work at a bar, so I work pretty late.
Krista McDowell says she was confused when her father texted her in the middle of the night.
He said, your little brother and sister are going to go live somewhere else for a while.
She was already planning to head home later that day.
And he was like, is there any way you can be here sooner? You probably won't see me for a while unless you come see me in person before then. Mm-hmm. And so I got in my car, 3:30 in the morning, drove all the way to Baytown.
2 hours later, it was the beginning of the end of Krista's life as she knew it.
It was dark still. I knocked on his door and he let me in. He told me that at 10 a.m. the Rangers were gonna come pick him up.
She says at first her father seemed more annoyed than anything.
Did you think he had anything to do with it at that point?
No, not at all. Not a single hint that he had anything to do with that.
Did you ask him if he had anything to do with it?
Yes, I'd asked him multiple times, like, are you guilty? And he was just no, I just don't understand, why I'm getting blamed. And the entire time he pleaded to me, his innocence.
Krista says, though clearly anxious, it mostly seemed like her father was just trying to take care of business, giving her photo albums, financial statements, even the keys to his beloved Mustang. Until the conversation took an abrupt turn.
He looks at me and he says, the Rangers told me that if I tell them where the body is, that they'll lessen my punishment. And I said, well, you don't know where the body is. How would you know? And he was like, what if it's true? And I asked him, do you know where the body is? And he just looked away from me and just bawled his eyes out. And at that point, I knew, he knew where it was.
What did you think at that point?
I don't know. What do you think? If someone that you love and you've sat here and defended the whole time tells you they're guilty, what do you think?
Did you think he had actually confessed to you at that point? Even though he never said the actual words?
Because I asked him what he did over and over. I begged him to tell me. And he was just I can't tell you what I did. And then all of a sudden, we heard a noise and he stood up and he was like, they're here.
And then all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah. I literally dropped to my knees and just cried.
Police brought Steve McDowell back to the station to deliver his much-anticipated confession. But the man who had kept them guessing about so much for so long was about to make them guess again.
He's yanking your chain.
Yeah, he
back
is.
And forth,
and
back and forth.
I'd had it. At this point, I'd had it.
Saturday, September 9th.
I didn't sleep much. Literally, I could not wait for daylight to come up.
Steve McDowell agreed to meet with Sheriff Hawthorne and the investigation team one more time and finally provide an answer to the question, what happened to Crystal?
My understanding from our communication was that you were kind of ready to be honest about some things.
We needed a confession. We needed somebody to take us to her body.
Sheriff Hawthorne watched in a nearby room as McDowell shared the details of the morning Crystal came home after a night with her boyfriend.
I love her. I would do anything in my life for her back.
I think they got into an argument when she got home, and I think he was mad that she had stayed out all night.
Is that when she told you that she didn't love you anymore?
Yeah.
When she told you she didn't want to be with you or have anything to do with you?
And it seems that was enough for Steve McDowell to make a terrible choice.
He describes and essentially shows that he strangled her from behind.
So she had no idea he was coming.
Yes.
I squeezed her behind her over this.
Okay, like a chokehold or something? Did she say anything when that was going on, or did she fight, or what happened?
Just was scaring her.
How did you eventually know that she was no longer alive?
Stuff food.
And what'd you do after that?
I covered her face with a bag.
And then you put her in the car?
I tied her up, put her in the trash bags, and put her in the car.
And then McDowell says early the following morning, he drove off to dispose of Crystal's body, leaving their 2 children home alone.
The body was found right in here.
McDowell leads investigators here, a densely wooded area off an access road not far from his house.
Steve drives the detectives and the investigators out here.
Our cameras were the only ones allowed at the crime scene as investigators began their arduous work.
The terrain was pretty tough because it was a lot of work just trying to clear the trees and the limbs so that we could bring the body out.
At the end of a long search, the sheriff and DA share a moment.
It was just relief.
Today at 2:45 p.m., Crystal's body was discovered, and Stephen Wayne McDowell, 44, has been arrested, charged with murder.
If he had not told you exactly where the body was, would she have ever been found?
No.
Once Steve McDowell showed investigators where the body was, he was brought here to the Chambers County Jail. Now, even though he confessed to strangling Crystal, that may not be the end of it. In Texas, a defendant can claim they killed someone out of sudden passion, which could mean as little as 2 years in prison. Which is exactly what Steve McDowell did in June 2019 during his trial for murder. McDowell testified that Crystal's death was a result of a spontaneous hug that got out of control. But DA Leak gave the jury a different point of view.
Do you think this was premeditated?
Yes, without a doubt.
And this was not just, he snapped?
Well, you can snap and still think about it. I think he just decided, if I can't have her, nobody can.
After 5 days of testimony, evidence, and argument, it only took 3.5 hours for the jury to reach a verdict: guilty. 1 day later, the same jury sentenced Steve McDowell to 50 years in prison for the murder of his ex-wife.
We've been very fortunate. The jury saw it the same way the law enforcement officers and the district attorney's office did.
It feels good. I think they made the right decision. So with 50 years, he will have to serve at least 25 before he's eligible for parole.
I hope he never makes it out of there. He deserves whatever he gets.
For the kids, it's just a sad situation all the way around.
Both parents are gone now. Basically, those kids are motherless and fatherless, just like Crystal was.
Happy birthday to you.
Which brings us back to the other victims in this case, the children. It was Aunt Cindy who was tasked with telling an 8-year-old boy and his 5-year-old sister the truth.
And I just grabbed their hands and I said, "We found your mommy. And she's in heaven. And your daddy's in jail for taking your mother's life." And at that point, Madden looked up and he said, "Okay." He said, "I can deal with this." And Madden grabbed his sister and they hugged and he said, "I love you, Maui." He said, "I will always take care of you."
And Krista promises to always be a part of their lives.
I thought about my brother and sister, and I was like, they have no one. I need to be the bigger person right now, and I need to be the person they look up to.
Crystal loved him with every part of her being. She wanted them to have the wonderful life.
You think they'll be okay?
I know they will be, without a shadow of a doubt.
Look at they're madly in love. They are. Look at that.
Nancy Sonnenfeld was found shot in the head.
The police report says she was in a second-floor bedroom. She later died.
We always thought a wonderful couple because they were always laughing.
Attractive and young, and you just couldn't imagine a happier couple.
Kurt Sonnenfeld, he was this debonair, really buff, eloquent young man. You know, everybody who met him liked him. He was a videographer for the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
This is a box of some of my things from FEMA.
My name is Kirk Mitchell. I'm a reporter at the Denver Post. Back in 2001, Kurt went to 9/11 and he videotaped Ground Zero. Nancy Sonnenfeld, she was a star in her own right. She got a well-paying job in an advertising agency. They were a very hip couple. They would go to all the trendy bars in downtown Denver. They went on trips. They went to Amsterdam. They went to South America. They had a beautiful relationship.
January 1st, 2002, New Year's Day. Get a call of a shooting, individual frantically calling the police saying his wife had shot herself. The evidence didn't really match up with what we were being told occurred. We were questioning nearly from the start that this had anything to do with a self-inflicted injury and was more consistent with a homicide.
Kurt Sonnenfeld was arrested and charged with his wife's death, which he insisted was a suicide. But prosecutors suddenly dropped the charge, saying they did not believe they could prove Sonnenfeld guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
After he was released from jail, he took a trip to Argentina.
My world had been completely destroyed, and when Paula and I first met, she was the reward for all the suffering that I had been through.
He had fallen madly in love with this young woman and decided that he was going to stay in Argentina.
2 years later, prosecutors filed new charges against Sonnenfeld, but Sonnenfeld had moved to Argentina, and prosecutors can't get him extradited.
Kurt Sonnenfeld went there so that he didn't have to face trial in Colorado.
Do you believe he's going to get away with murder?
It's possible.
Without a doubt, everybody knew was a suicide.
He is innocent. There's nothing else to say.
It's pretty incredible what he's pulled off.
My name is Kurt Sonnenfeld. This is my story.
I'm Erin Moriarty. Tonight on 48 Hours, the strange case of Kurt Sonnenfeld. Kurt Sonnenfeld has built a new life for himself in Argentina. Here, he's out of the grasp of U.S. authorities who want him extradited so that they can try him for the murder of his first wife.
There are people in Denver, Colorado who think Kurt killed Nancy. What do you say?
Well, they are wrong.
Kurt's staunchest supporter is his second wife, Paula. They met at a restaurant when he arrived in 2003 and married just 40 days later. They're now the parents of twin girls.
You can tell just looking at Kurt, and especially after you talk to him, that he is a beautiful person. Kurt is incapable of even killing a cricket or an ant.
Paula has been at Kurt's side as he's waged a public campaign to clear his name.
Oh, you were innocent for the USA justice?
Yes, I'm innocent.
This is from a 2005 TV appearance in Argentina.
On January 1st, 2002, my wife committed suicide with a single gunshot wound to the side of her head. The first policeman that came in said women don't commit suicide. That was when the lies began.
But authorities in Denver believe it's Kurt who's lying. Back in the U.S., Nancy Sonnenfeld's family has been waiting for justice for more than 14 years. Amy Leake is Nancy's sister.
A lot of times when people have somebody murdered in their family, it goes to trial and it's over and it's still painful, but you can move on. We can never have closure.
In the year before Nancy died, the two sisters had grown closer than ever.
We were finally becoming the best friends that I had wanted us to be. She was a strong person. She was very sophisticated. I always thought she was beautiful, and I saw her as being perfect.
Do you remember when your sister met Kurt?
Yes, I do. I remember how excited she was. She said she met her soulmate.
And there's Uncle Kurt. Hi, Uncle Kurt.
We loved Kurt. He became part of our family. He was fun to be with. He was good at telling stories. He was pretty much good at everything he did. He had great charisma.
Kurt traveled extensively as a freelance cameraman for FEMA, filming natural disasters. He also documented weapons storage and disposal sites. His biggest assignment was being sent to Ground Zero as one of two official videographers.
I saw this opening that smoke was pouring out of, and it looked just like the entrance to hell to me.
The footage shot by Kurt and his partner was seen all over the world, and Kurt seemed to revel in the attention he was getting, appearing in magazine articles and posing with celebrities.
I must say that Kurt liked attention, and Kurt liked to be in the limelight.
Leslie Lindbergh is Nancy's cousin.
And what did she think of that?
She was proud of him. She loved him.
But there were problems beneath the surface. Leslie says Nancy confided in her that Kurt had a problem with drugs and alcohol, and it was putting a strain on their marriage.
Nancy was very concerned about his drug use. She talked to him about it, and he said that he would stop, but he didn't.
She saw him going downhill, and she was scared he was going to destroy his life.
The last straw came when the couple took a trip to Thailand around Thanksgiving of 2001.
It was the turning point that affected the rest of her life.
Nancy called both her sister and her cousin from Thailand, saying Kurt had disappeared. She said she found him days later in a hotel room with 2 women doing drugs. Kurt and Nancy returned to the U.S. separately.
I even confronted him. I said, Kurt, what did you do in Thailand? I said, even what kind of drugs did you do? And his response to me was, everything I could get my hands on.
Nancy filed for a separation.
Do you think she intended to actually divorce him?
Mm-hmm. We talked about it, and she did. She was planning on moving on.
This close friend of the couple, who asked us not to show his face, says Kurt was worried about money.
Did Kurt want this divorce?
No. He was angry when they spoke about divorcing would ruin their finances. Also, I think he was worried about the house, because they owned a house together.
Had Nancy cut off some of the credit cards that he had?
Yeah. She was still more the breadwinner of the family and did what she did to try and cut back on his spending.
Despite their problems, Nancy and Kurt spent New Year's Eve together. He says they had arrived home from a party around 1:30 a.m., and just minutes later, Nancy's life came to a violent end.
When I heard the gunshot, I ran into the room where she was. I saw her there, bleeding profusely. I was hysterical. The first thing that I did was to hold her, and then I jumped up and called the police.
We realized really very, very quickly that this was not a suicide. This was a homicide investigation.
Retired Denver detective Jonathan Priest says police were immediately suspicious of Kurt's account.
Anytime there's someone else present when somebody kills themselves, those are characterized as attended suicides. Those bother me.
But why do attended suicides make you uncomfortable?
Attended suicides, people rarely kill themselves in front of other people. Most suicides occur when people are alone.
And there was something else that troubled first responders.
There was a very fine mist of what appeared to be blood staining on his face. The mist staining suggested he was near her at the time of the firearm discharge.
That this was blood spatter at the time the gun went off?
Yes.
Kurt also had a bruise forming around his right eye, possible evidence of a struggle. But most telling to the officers on the scene was the unusual location of Nancy's gunshot wound towards the back of her head. We asked Dr. Amy Martin, who was Denver's assistant medical examiner, to demonstrate.
It was a little bit above the ear hole and behind her ear hole on the right side of her head. So in approximately this area here. Now you've got to angle the gun so that it's going upwards and also a little bit behind.
Wait, this is very awkward.
I don't think I have ever seen a clear self-inflicted gunshot wound in that part of the head.
And what about the fact that it's what you call a non-contact, that it's not up against her head, the gun was not held up against her head?
That's unusual also. It does occur. When I look at her wound, I just would wonder why would you shoot yourself that way? If you're going to shoot yourself, why wouldn't you just shoot yourself in the temple? It's a lot easier to hold the gun to your temple.
Nancy Sonnenfeld died in the hospital later that morning, New Year's Day, 2002. She was 36 years old. Dr. Martin ruled her death a homicide, and police believe Kurt was her killer. When Kurt Sonnenfeld was brought in for questioning, that's when he first learned his wife Nancy had died.
He broke down, started crying, and started stating that his wife had shot herself, and began offering suggestions as to what we as law enforcement should be doing to help prove that she shot herself.
Insisting that detectives test Nancy's hands for gunshot residue.
The investigators are wondering, why is he telling us this? Rather than, my God, my wife has been shot. What happened?
But as the questioning continued, says former Detective John Priest, but Kurt admitted the marriage had been in trouble.
She was upset with him over a trip that they had taken to Thailand. She was upset with him for using drugs, according to him.
And Kurt told police it was possible they had fought about his drinking that night, and that Nancy probably saw no hope.
What do you think happened that night?
Maybe she was kicking him out.
Kurt was arrested for first-degree murder within hours of Nancy's death. The physical evidence, thought detectives, just didn't seem consistent with suicide. Using a mannequin and a couch similar to the Sonnenfelds, Priest demonstrates his theory.
You believe Kurt Sonnenfeld shot his wife. Do you believe he was sitting next to her on the couch as he did it?
It would make sense, yes. This is where my radiating spatter is coming from, is this exit wound. So I'm looking at something like this.
Priest also believes Nancy was moved because of the odd position she was found in.
She was leaned back against the back of the couch, and her head was slightly back up against the wall.
All right, if first responders first found her sitting like this, what was the evidence that made you believe she had been moved?
On the end of the couch over here, very large saturation pattern of blood that's coming from her head, and then created a very large pool on the floor. She had to be tipped over like this at some point.
Nancy.
Hi. Investigators believe Kurt tipped Nancy over so he could get up after shooting her. And Priest thinks Nancy lay there bleeding for at least 10 minutes before Kurt propped her back up and called 911.
The pool of blood that's over here, it was created over a good period of time.
That delay, says Priest, gave Kurt time to clean up, and it could explain why gunshot residue was found on Kurt's clothing, but not his hands.
He had more than enough time to wash his hands. The fact that he has gunshot residue on him at all is what's significant, because he claims not to have been in the room when the firearm was discharged.
But if she was murdered, how did gunshot residue get on Nancy's hand? And why is her fingerprint, not Kurt's, on the gun's magazine?
Do you believe that he held the gun in her hand, or do you believe that he actually had the gun in his hand when he shot her?
Well, that I can't tell, one way or the other. I can put the gun in the position when it was fired. Whose hand or hands were on the firearm, I can't tell you.
I believe it was suicide, and I believe the evidence showed that.
Kurt's defense attorney, Carrie Thompson, says detectives got it all wrong.
I believe that there was a rush to judgment, there was an assumption this was a homicide.
I mean, how would you describe then the investigation into this case?
Shoddy.
Shoddy?
Yeah, shoddy. From the police report accounts, she was found sitting up in the middle, approximately here.
Thompson says Nancy fell over on her own after shooting herself.
We're saying that the physical evidence showed that she at one time had slumped over, but never really wasn't moved. Just the top part of her body had slumped over with her head, causing that drip that caused that pool of blood.
She says that when Kurt discovered his wife, he grabbed her and then sat her up on the couch. And that, Thompson says, could account for that blood mist on his face.
She was still breathing, which means she could have sprayed out some blood herself onto him.
She has no blood in her nose or her mouth, so how do we have expirated blood?
This is her graduation from college. She was very proud of that day.
Would you have ever described your sister as suicidal?
No, I never saw her as suicidal at all.
Still, Kurt kept insisting Nancy had been suicidal long before that night.
She was heartbroken. She was depressed. Her marriage was falling apart. But she was a fighter, and she was looking towards the future.
But Kurt's attorney claims that less than a month after Nancy's death, she had gone into the home and personally found a suicide note. Evidence, she says, police overlooked.
I can recall very specifically when I found it. It was right there on the dresser, along with her writings.
Thompson says the note appeared to have been torn from Nancy's diary. It contained a line from a Walt Whitman poem. What indeed is finally beautiful except death and love? To which Nancy added, Kurt, please get help.
Do you believe that is a suicide note?
No. It doesn't read like a suicide note. It doesn't read like the, goodbye cruel world or I can't live like this any longer.
She was asking Kurt to get help. It's not a suicide note. She was just so concerned for him. And she was worried that if he didn't stop with drugs, that possibly he would kill himself.
As Kurt's trial date was approaching, the defense team went on the offensive, doing their own crime scene analysis that seemed to contradict the cops' murder theory.
I think they did a half-assed job, quite frankly.
Then District Attorney Bill Ritter.
It just felt to me like our Denver Police Department Homicide Division still had work to do on this case.
Did that mean that you're having some doubts about whether this was a homicide or a suicide?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to say, I believed that we had some significant chance of losing at trial.
Just a little more than 5 months after Nancy's death, Ritter made a highly unusual decision. He dismissed the murder charge against Kurt, but without prejudice, which meant the investigation would continue and charges could be reinstated later.
What was your reaction, Amy, when you heard charges were dropped and he would just go home?
We were upset, of course. I cannot even explain to you the pain that we went through. It all goes back to our faith in God. There's nothing else that would have carried us through.
On June 14, 2002, Kurt Sonnenfeld walked out of jail a free man. The murder charge against Kurt Sonnenfeld had been dropped, but for months after Kurt's release, Denver police continued to dig for new evidence, starting with Kurt's computer.
He says that he was in his office. He said he was in there on his computer when he heard the firearm discharge and went in to check on his wife.
When his computer was checked, did that check out?
No.
A forensic analysis revealed that the computer was last used around 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve. But Kurt's call to 911, saying his wife had just shot herself, didn't come in till hours later, at 1:40 a.m. Then there was a suspicious injury to Nancy's left index fingernail.
So it could be evidence of some kind of struggle.
It could be. She had some bruises on her hands, bruises around her right wrist. Certainly were consistent with some kind of a struggle.
Kurt's DNA was found under that fingernail. More possible evidence of a struggle. And there were also 2 jailhouse informants who say Kurt Sonnenfeld confessed. They came forward separately after Sonnenfeld had been released. John Priest says their statements contained information only Nancy's killer would know.
Like what? Give me an example that really just blew you away. Thought, wow, this guy must have really talked to him.
Positions in the crime scene, where evidence was located, things that there's just no way they would have had that information.
48 Hours tracked down one of those informants. Robert Dreyer has a history of identity theft, fraud, and forgery. He shared a jail cell with Sonnenfeld for 4 days and didn't much like him.
Arrogant, ignorant, self-centered.
Dreyer is a hard man to pin down, but he claims Kurt told him about the night Nancy died.
What happened at the party?
She came outside and she saw him with another girl again and suspected that he was getting high, and she got mad and she left. She said, "I'm leaving." He goes, "What do you mean you're leaving?" She goes, "I'm going home and I'm leaving you." She said that was it, and she left and she went home. She walked home.
Without him?
Without him.
Dreyer says when Kurt got home, the couple argued.
He said, "You're not gonna leave me. We're gonna be together." we're not getting divorced.
According to Dreyer, Kurt first told him he was out of the room when Nancy committed suicide by shooting herself in the back of the head.
I said, well, she shot herself behind the ear. He said, well, I said, people don't shoot themselves behind the ear, Kurt. Come on, man, you did it, didn't you? And, he said, yeah, he admitted, I did. He said, but the cops will never figure it out, and it'd be your word against mine.
As for why Kurt had no gunshot residue on his hands,
he said, well, that's why they make saran wrap.
Dreyer's statements to police could be devastating if they're true.
Let's be honest, you lied to police all the time. You would use other people's identities. You lie all the time. Why should anybody believe what you're telling now?
You don't have to believe it, but I'm going to tell you, that man told me he killed that woman, his wife. I have no reason to lie. I got nothing for it.
And Dreyer didn't receive any special treatment in return for coming forward. In December 2003, 2 years after Nancy's death, the Denver District Attorney's Office felt it had enough to refile the murder charge. But when police tried to locate Sonnenfeld, he was nowhere to be found.
And it's, uh-oh.
Police considered him a fugitive.
We start looking for him, and we find out that he's no longer in the United States.
When authorities decided to rearrest Kurt Sonnenfeld for murder, they didn't know he had moved 6,000 miles away from Denver. He was now living here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he wasn't exactly living the life of a man on the run.
He was free to go to Argentina. He met somebody there. The characterization that he fled to Argentina is bull.
I had never hid when I was here. I traveled here with my own passport, with the airline ticket under my name.
In that 2005 interview, Kurt said he simply came here on vacation, intending only to stay a few weeks. But when he met Paula, that changed everything.
What made you fall in love with him?
Because he is so kind. Because he respects all the forms of life.
In Paula, he found a sympathetic ear and the perfect advocate. She's a human rights activist. Kurt declined to talk to us on camera, but Paula spoke on his behalf.
You knew from the very beginning he had been accused of killing his wife.
Yes, he told me everything about him.
And did that put you off at all? Did that make you a little nervous about being around him?
Oh, of course not. It just made me sad because the story is terrible.
Kurt settled into his life in Argentina with Paula. He found work as a freelance cameraman, but their life was interrupted after those charges were refiled in the U.S. Sonnenfeld was suddenly arrested by Interpol.
This could not be happening.
Kurt was taken to Argentina's Devoto prison, while U.S. authorities fought to have him extradited and sent back to Colorado.
Did you fear during that time that he was going to be extradited?
It's always fear, but in this case, I trust in my country.
Kurt was jailed for nearly 7 months, but in March 2005, a judge in Argentina rejected the extradition request. He ordered Sonnenfeld's immediate release. The reason? Colorado has the death penalty.
We were never going to be trying to get the death penalty for Kurt Sonnenfeld.
Then Colorado Governor Bill Owens.
I signed promises that we wouldn't seek the death penalty. These promises were affirmed by the Denver District Attorney and every other party involved.
I was frustrated. I was frustrated that he wasn't going to come back to the States.
But it wasn't over yet. The extradition ruling was appealed. So Kurt launched his own public relations campaign.
A lot of people saying that these charges were a mistake.
And for the first time, Kurt claimed that U.S. authorities are really after him for what he saw at Ground Zero.
Some of my things from FEMA.
And that his life is in danger. When Kurt Sonnenfeld decided to go public with his story in 2005, he turned to Rolando Grania, a popular journalist in Argentina.
What was the story he told you?
He told me that he was one of two cameramen who record the Ground Zero after the plane crash. I can't believe it. Really? He thinks he was a hero, and then he was in jail, and he doesn't know why.
Kurt told Grania his wife Nancy took her own life.
My wife had left a suicide note. She had left a journal of suicidal writings. She had been severely depressed in the months before.
I think Kurt is not a murderer. I'm sure he's not a murderer.
Grania admits he never did his own investigation, but says the fact that charges were dropped is evidence the case must be weak.
What made you believe him?
If someone has killed his wife, it's difficult to understand why he's free.
What's more, Kurt told Grania a chilling tale of being falsely accused and tortured by police in Denver.
One of them put me into a chokehold, while the other one was kicking me repeatedly in the groin, in the stomach. He also had a rubber glove on his hand with a red chemical, and he inserted it up into my nose.
But if that did happen, Kurt's defense attorney never heard about it.
Was he ever beaten at the jail that you're aware of?
I have no information about that.
Kurt also claimed he faced the death penalty.
They told me I was going to be put to death.
It's not true, but for years, Kurt and Paula Sonnenfeld have capitalized on that claim. They've even used their twin daughters to make their case.
Scarlett and Natasha are soldiers in this cause.
It's a poignant and disturbing picture. The girls holding up signs saying, "Don't let the U.S. government assassinate my father." Paula even insisted that her now 9-year-old daughters sit in on our interview.
Are you comfortable with having both of them here during this?
Absolutely. How you hide all this that is happening to us from children?
Despite what she knew would be sensitive subject matter.
You know Kurt's case never had the death penalty. It doesn't even qualify for the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. And what about being in jail forever and dying in a jail? That's the same.
Still, the concern that Kurt could be executed won him support in Argentina.
What is it about Kurt Sonnenfeld's case that made you want to fight for him?
En nuestra Constitución Nacional impide la extradición a países que tienen penas de muerte.
Jorge Richard and his wife Dolores Rivas are prominent human rights activists who run centers that care for poor and orphaned children. Dolores says she's worried about what would happen to Kurt's daughters if he's sent back to the U.S.
Mi preocupación, que es destruir una familia.
But what really turned Kurt Sonnenfeld into a cause celeb in Argentina is something that many here in the U.S. might find outrageous. His claim that he saw evidence that the U.S. government played a role in the attack on the World Trade Center. Sonnenfeld claims that's the real reason why authorities are after him.
Do you think that the government knows the crash will come?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure of it.
And according to Sonnenfeld, the U.S. did nothing to stop it. He also claims that it was suspicious that the airplane's flight data recorders, or black boxes, were never recovered.
The black boxes were supposedly vaporized, right? But I have footage of the landing gear, of the seats of the airplane, all of that survived.
Sonnenfeld also suggested that the cleanup at Ground Zero happened too quickly.
Almost from day one, they began taking away all of the metal beams, driving trucks all over the evidence. So they themselves were destroying evidence almost purposely and programmatically from the very first days. It was almost like it was pre-planned.
But what he never told Grania is that he didn't even get to Ground Zero until a full week after the attack. And if he has any concrete evidence to back up his conspiracy theory, he hasn't shown it to anyone.
Kurt is just saying what other people have been saying for 14 years. He doesn't appear to have any proof of anything new. So why would the American government go after him?
Porque él estaba ahí.
Kurt Sonnenfeld.
Kurt repeated his claims in interviews on Argentinian talk radio, in magazines, and other TV shows.
Del World Trade Center.
And his story has been embraced by those who have little trust in governments.
Cuando le dice a sus superiores lo que ocurrió, cómo él vio las cosas, ahí comienza una persecución sistemática.
Adolfo Perez Esquivel won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1980 after years of imprisonment and torture by Argentina's military junta. He's been trying to help Kurt stay in the country.
Lo que tratamos de hacer es tratar de que se le trate como corresponde.
Kurt and Paula claim they've been spied on and harassed in Argentina by American agents sent to intimidate them. Kurt even wrote a book about his case, published in Spanish only, called El Perseguido, or The Persecuted.
It reads like a spy novel, and it's one of the reasons why journalists in Argentina have compared him to James Bond.
But he's no hero to Kirk Mitchell, the reporter for the Denver Post, who is a CBS News consultant. He's been covering the Kurt Sonnenfeld case since the beginning.
So here, Kurt Sonnenfeld is a murder suspect in Argentina. What is he?
He is the whistleblower, a brave man who stood up to a corrupt government.
This stuff comes up after his arrest in Argentina when he starts making this. And the prosecutor and I are looking at each other like, where did that come from?
He was a photographer at Ground Zero.
Yes, he was, but he's also an exceptional liar.
He is trying to use that terrible situation to shield himself from murder charges. He's trying to use his children to shield himself from murder charges. When is Kurt Sonnenfeld going to stop? When is he going to come home and account for that night?
More than 14 years have passed since Nancy Sonnenfeld's death, and her family still clings to the hope that Kurt will someday go on trial for murder.
Why does it matter that Kurt come back and go on trial?
It matters because my cousin, who loved him so much, who gave him so much, it matters because my cousin lost her life. She's not there because of him. He needs to atone for that night.
Nancy Sonnenfeld has gotten lost in all of this, says Denver Post reporter Kurt Mitchell.
The way he has couched what has happened to him is he is the victim. It is pretty incredible what he's pulled off.
Mitchell was so intrigued by the case that he wrote a book about it.
You call your book Spin Doctor. Why?
Well, I came to the conclusion that his story was so far-fetched, so far from the truth, that that's what he's become. You know, to me, it's astonishing that it's being believed.
Is Kurt Sonnenfeld gaming the system?
Kurt Sonnenfeld is definitely gaming the system, though someday, hopefully, that game may run out.
Former Colorado Governor Bill Owens says Sonnenfeld has come up with a novel way to avoid prosecution by cleverly spinning the horror of 9/11 to his own advantage.
There are a lot of people around the world who want to believe the worst about our country. And when he says, look, I'm a victim, intelligence agencies are after me, there are a lot of victims in this case. Not one of them is Kurt Sonnenfeld.
Nancy's family continued to live in limbo as Kurt's case dragged on through the Argentine courts. In 2014, it landed on President Cristina Kirchner's desk.
Well, there's politics that get wrapped up in these cases. The current president of Argentina comes from a party that was very antagonistic towards the U.S.
A fact that Kurt and Paula seem to be counting on.
I know that my government is going to protect us. We will fight for Kurt, and we are not alone.
And Paula may have been right. In 2015, during the final weeks of her presidency, Kirchner's administration ruled that Kurt Sonnenfeld will not be extradited, stating that to do so would be a violation of human rights.
Human rights? What about my cousin? What about her human rights?
I absolutely believe it's political. I believe that Mr. Sonnenfeld has built an aura as a martyr, as a hero, and I think the politics of Argentina have protected him from a murder charge.
Kurt and Paula wouldn't comment to us, but shortly after the ruling, Paula tweeted, "We're living the first day of the rest of our lives." Has the murder suspect outsmarted the U.S. government? It certainly looks that way. But Nancy's cousin is determined Kurt will never find peace.
Lies, the manipulations, they go on, and it will come out. And I will be alive to see it, even if I have to go to Argentina. I will look that man in the eye again, just so that he knows I am still alive. And I am here for my cousin. And I will never let this die.
Bye. "48 Hours. Don't miss an episode."
I was the first responding deputy to the scene that night of November of '92. Oh, I'll never forget that night. A couple came in and reported that a car was sitting down at the off-ramp with the lights on and the engine running. We opened the door and looked in with my flashlight, and that's when I saw this girl slumped over in the seat. There was a lot of blood in her hair. I really thought that she was dead. Didn't appear to be breathing at all. Her name was Michelle Lawless. She was a 19-year-old college student. She was approximately a half a mile from her residence when I found her. There's a lot of things that happened that night that's still a mystery. She leaves her boyfriend's house and she was on her way home. It's possible that somebody was following her up the interstate. Maybe they knew her and they got her to pull over and stop. If she knew them, and I believe that she did know them, I think she knew how bad they were and how serious this situation was. And maybe that's why she ended off down at the bottom of the hill. Maybe she was running for her life, and they caught her. The beating started there. Once it started, it was like in a rage, and there was no stopping it. But the worst part was yet to come whenever she was put back in the car. She was shot 3 times at point-blank range. This was cold-blooded. I think this person is a monster.
Let's call him monster. Calling me a killer. Calling me a murderer. Doesn't need to get any worse than that.
Josh Keyser was convicted of the murder of Angel Michelle Lawless, serving 60 years at the state correctional facility.
The only thing I remember is when the verdict came back, I went numb. And everything became like I was in a drum. Like all the voices, other than my own, were at a distance. I was yelling that it wasn't me. I didn't do it.
There was people that came forward and said that he had bragged about killing Michelle Lawless.
I had never met Michelle Lawless. The night that Michelle was murdered, I was 350 miles away. I'm an innocent man.
People kept asking me, do you have the right person in prison? In the back of my mind, there was a possibility that maybe Josh didn't do this. If Josh Keyser didn't do it, I hate to think that there's somebody still out there that's responsible for this and got away with it all these years. I think they should be locked up like the animal that they are. I would very much like to find out who that is, and I will.
The Girl Who Knew Too Much. Tonight's 48 Hours Mystery.
You know, when I look back, I wish that maybe I'd have listened a little more or been there a little more, because she was always there for me.
More than 19 years have passed since 19-year-old Michelle Lawless was found bludgeoned and shot to death in her car.
Some of this stuff's hard to read.
And it's still not easy for her best friend to read the cheery diary that Michelle kept the last year of her life.
January 1st, slept real late, family went to Mingo and I to Leon's. We loved and ate and talked and rented movies. Made me feel loved today, and I am really happy. Love him. Great first day of 1992.
Melissa Gaines met Michelle when they were high school freshmen in Benton, Missouri.
I had just moved to Kelly High School, didn't know anybody. Her little bubbly self come bouncing up and introduced herself, and it was all over. She was part of my life from that moment on.
While Michelle stood barely 5 feet tall,
she was just little bitty. She was tiny.
She was no lightweight. She was a green belt in karate, halfway to earning a black belt.
I can't even remember anything she was ever scared of. She was fearless.
Would it ever occur to you that Michelle might be in danger?
No. No. I mean, that never was a thought to me. Never.
Which is why what happened in the early morning hours of November 8th, 1992 was so unexpected, so shocking. How brutal a murder was this?
Very.
That's Rick Walder, the man with the mustache. He was a 32-year-old part-time deputy sheriff when he discovered the body of Michelle Lawless.
This is small town, USA. You know, a lot of stuff like this just doesn't happen.
Female's head is slumped over on the passenger seat.
Police documented the grisly scene, using blood evidence to reconstruct Michelle's final terrifying moments.
What appears to be blood splatters on the highway.
I believe that she got out of the vehicle, and I think there was an argument.
Pool of blood, 16, 18 inches away from the left.
She ended up over the guardrail and down the bottom of the slope. A very violent altercation took place. I believe that she was beat at the bottom and knocked unconscious. There was a lot of blood.
What appears to be a trail.
There's some right there. There's some right there.
There was also blood under Michelle's fingernails and marks on her right hand and wrist, suggesting she had fought her assailants.
I think she was fighting for her life. I think she was fighting more than one person. There was a blood trail going back up the hill. They carry her across the guardrail.
Some blood dripped on the guardrail.
They put her back in the car.
Appears to be a .380 caliber.
It wasn't until investigators searched her car and found 3 spent shell casings from a .380 handgun that they realized Michelle had been shot, too.
I think after she got back in the car, I think that's when she regained conscious, and somebody reached through the window, shot her point blank in the face, shot in the back of the head, and then one more time in the back. I can't imagine what she went through that night.
At the same time Rick Walter was working the crime scene, a 23-year-old local man walked into the sheriff's office with a surprising story.
Scared me. I've never really seen anything like that.
Mark Abbott reported that he had also seen the woman in the car.
All I remember is her face was just matted and covered with hair and blood.
Did you know who it was?
No.
Abbott told the dispatcher he thought the woman had been shot and that he tried to call 911, but a nearby payphone was out of order.
Pulled out there as fast as I could and went straight to the county sheriff's department trying to get an ambulance.
As he was leaving, Abbott saw, as he described to investigators, a white car with several dark-skinned Hispanic men driving away from the crime scene.
Well, a man for sure and 2 or 3 other people.
Michelle's family got the news when authorities came to their door.
I answered the door. It's about 3 a.m., I guess.
Jason Lawless was 15 when his older sister was killed.
I don't do this well.
How would you describe the effect on your family?
Whoever shot my sister killed my family. Every ounce of it, every fiber that held it together.
The first suspect was, of course, the last person to admit seeing Michelle alive, the boyfriend she stopped to see, Leon Lamb.
What time did she arrive at your house?
She was only there about an hour or so it could have been 11:30 or 12 at night.
And what time did she leave?
Just right at 1 a.m.
Was Michelle your first love?
Yes, ma'am.
January 6th. Called Leon and told him I love him so much.
And from the entries in her diary, Michelle clearly loved Leon, but they also argued frequently. Michelle was hurt that Leon was seeing other girls.
No matter how mean he is to me, I still love him.
But that night, says Leon, things were fine, although he remembers Michelle was reluctant to leave his house.
Now that I look back, it seemed like that she knew something was wrong, maybe. Something was going to happen.
Investigators looked closely at Leon, but they could find nothing to tie him to the scene, and he passed a polygraph.
Did you think it could be Leon?
He never crossed my mind, no.
Why not?
I just could never imagine him wanting to harm her like that, ever.
Weeks went by with few other leads and no arrests. And then finally, 4 months after Michelle's murder, a break, a big one. Several inmates at the county jail reported that a 17-year-old Illinois boy who had been held there briefly on an assault charge had confessed to killing Michelle Lawless. His name was Joshua Keezer. When Mark Abbott was shown a photo lineup, he picked out Keezer as the driver he saw near the crime scene.
Did you say, yeah, this is the guy I saw, I know this is it?
No.
What did you say?
It looks like him, and that looks like the car.
That's all investigators needed. Joshua Keezer was charged with the first-degree murder of Michelle Lawless.
I sit there stunned. I immediately started to just be shaken and confused, and I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that something very real was happening.
Michelle's family and friends were just as stunned.
Had you ever heard your sister mention the name Josh Keezer?
No.
Had you ever heard the name Josh Keezer?
No.
There was no truth to what they were presenting. Everything was a lie.
We want to know who did it, of course. We just would really like to know why. Was there a purpose behind it?
Valerie Eubanks is Michelle Lawless's kid sister.
Was it just a fluke? Was she at the wrong place at the wrong time? Did she walk up on something?
You know, you just want to deny it. You don't want it to be true.
Esther Lawless is their mother.
What do you know about her last hours, who she was with?
She was with some of her friends from Sykeston that she hung out with all the time. Driving around in Sykeston, they would drive up and down Main Street and park in Malco parking lot or whatever and hang out. It seemed to be a very typical, Saturday night.
In the days before November 7th and 8th, did Michelle express any kind of concerns or being afraid of anybody?
Not to us, no.
Do you think that Michelle would have stopped for a stranger on the street?
Not at all.
We always kind of felt that someone she knew was involved, and that's what made her pull over and stop.
Which is what made the arrest of Joshua Keezer so puzzling. There's no mention of him anywhere in Michelle's diary.
Had you ever met her, heard her name?
No. The first time I'd ever seen her is when my attorney brought me a picture of her obituary. That's the first time I had actually ever seen her face. When they began to ask me a few questions about some murder, I was like, well, why are they asking me about this stuff?
Josh certainly fit the type. He was a 17-year-old dropout and rumored to be a gang member. He came from a broken home, bouncing between his parents and living on the street.
He had long hair, he was dirty. He slept on the street a lot of times and slept wherever he could. He had already had a couple different run-ins with the law.
I wasn't really that different than most kids that don't have an advantage. And I was just going through some very, difficult struggles.
Even though Josh insisted he was 350 miles away the night of the murder, investigators hauled him into the office of Bill Farrell, the Scott County Sheriff back then.
He settles into his chair, like a split second later, literally comes halfway over his desk and accuses me of killing, and I quote, his little girl, and that they were charging me with first-degree murder.
More than a year later, in June of 1994, Josh Keezer got his day in court.
What did you believe would happen at the trial?
I believed I would win. What were they going to present? They had blood underneath the victim's fingernails.
Was it yours?
It was not my type. It was not my DNA. They did not have fingerprints, palm prints, no weapon, no paper trail, no motive.
But the prosecution did have those jailhouse informants who took the stand and swore that Josh had confessed to the murder. And then a surprise witness.
You went to the trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Although Chantel Kreider could only see the back of Keezer's head in court, she whispered to a friend that she thought she recognized him as a young man who had argued with Michelle at a Halloween party just 1 week before her murder.
This guy kept asking her out, and she refused. He was real arrogant and very hateful.
What do you mean hateful?
He called her a bitch because she kept refusing and was like, leave me alone. Then he asked me out, and I told him, I said, are you crazy? You just asked my best friend out. There's no way. And he slapped me in the back of my hair.
Josh Keezer looked like him?
It looked like him.
Finally, the connection the prosecutor needed. Chantel was questioned for hours by Sheriff Bill Farrell and became the state's star witness.
So you took the stand, and what did you say on the stand?
I believed it was Josh.
Also on the stand, Mark Abbott, the man who had reported seeing Michelle Lawless in her car the night of her murder. Once again, he identified Josh as the driver of the white car he saw near the crime scene. But the defense pointed out that Abbott had reported seeing several men that night and had given conflicting descriptions.
They chose to rely on the credibility of a man who first claimed that it was a light-skinned black man, then a carload of Mexicans, and then they finally settled on a pale white kid from Illinois.
No physical evidence tied Josh to the murder.
This is the leather jacket that
But the prosecutor told the jury that tests showed there was blood on Josh's jacket and a car he was driving. At the end of the trial, the jury was out just 3.5 hours.
I'm sitting there ready to jump, and then the verdict came back guilty.
Guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Michelle Lawless.
The only thing I remember is when the verdict came back, I went numb. I was confused. I remember hearing myself yelling and screaming. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
What did you think when he yelled that, leaving the courtroom?
What else can he say, but I didn't do it.
Josh Keezer's sentence, 60 years in prison.
Josh was sent to a notorious prison known as the Walls, the Missouri State Penitentiary. Now closed, it was such a violent place. It was once called the bloodiest 47 acres in America. And for nearly 10 years, Josh lived right here in Housing Unit 4, cell number 99.
There was a point that I got attacked when I was in prison. There were some men who wanted to rape me, and they tried and they failed. Praise God. But in the process of defending myself, I got beat up quite bad and ended up in the hospital. On 2 occasions, I prayed for death. I didn't want to wake up.
we're going toward where Michelle was found that night. There's nothing about this whole case that makes me feel good at all.
In 2005, more than 12 years after finding Michelle Lawless shot dead in her car,
Yeah, I go by here a lot.
Rick Walter was no longer a part-time deputy. He was now the sheriff of Scott County.
I think about the family, and I can't imagine what the family went through.
For years, Walter had nagging doubts about the conviction of Josh Keezer.
Talk to the average, everyday layperson, you know, and they would tell me the same thing. This kid didn't do it.
So as first order of business, the new sheriff did something extraordinary. He reopened Josh Keezer's case.
You must know how incredibly unusual that is.
It's very unusual. In the law enforcement community, that's not a real popular thing to do. This wasn't a cold case. This was a closed case.
But Walter, with a wife and 3 children, quickly discovered that his decision to get to the truth made some people very uncomfortable.
You've had death threats.
Sure.
Undeterred, Walter hired an investigator from another county, Brandon Cade, who knew nothing about the case, to conduct an independent review of the files. At first, Cade thought he was wasting his time.
Reading the court transcripts, everything, they had witnesses that said he confessed. It seemed pretty rock solid when I first read through it.
But as he dug through the files, that rock-solid case began to crumble.
Every bit of it, once you really took and examined it piece by piece and just looked at it a little harder, it came apart.
Remember those jailhouse informants who claimed Josh had confessed? After getting better deals in exchange for their testimony, these 3 later admitted they lied. And there's more.
This is the leather jacket that belonged to Josh Keyser.
And this was evidence that supposedly tied him to the murder.
Right.
The jury had been told that luminol tests done on this jacket and a car Keyser borrowed indicated drops of blood.
We had it tested, and in fact, it wasn't blood.
It wasn't blood at all?
No.
And yet the jury in Josh's trial heard it was?
Right.
And what about the surprise star witness, Chantel Kreider, who connected Josh Keyser to Michelle at the Halloween party?
And in fact, did Chantel see Josh at a party? Did she see him arguing with Michelle Lawless?
No.
Was he even at that party?
No.
How do you know for a fact Josh Keyser wasn't at that party?
Dawn Pierce hosted the Halloween party.
Because I know every guy that was there was not a strange man to me.
So why did Chantel testify that Josh was there? She now says she was pushed hard by the then sheriff, Bill Farrell.
Did you feel pressured in that room?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I really did. He kept going on and on and on about how my testimony was that important because I was what they needed to link them together.
Just days after the verdict, Dawn Pierce and another girl who was at the party went to Keyser's attorney and provided a sworn statement.
They contacted his defense attorney the next Monday and said that he was not at our party. They had a list of all the kids that was there.
That list was given to Sheriff Farrell, but somehow the information went nowhere.
Everyone wanted to believe that this thing was done and over with, and the guy was in jail.
Jason Lawless believes there was a lot of pressure on Sheriff Farrell to find his sister's killer.
He wanted a conviction, he wanted it quick, and he wanted it fast, and he got it.
And you're trying to make it right.
I'm trying, and I will.
Rick Walter was about to find out he wasn't all alone in his search for the truth.
There was absolutely no reason why they convicted him.
Jane Williams was a church volunteer at the Missouri State Prison where Josh Keyser was serving out his sentence.
I'm not an attorney. I had never read a trial transcript before. I really knew nothing about any of this. But as I began to just read it and truthfully just pray about it, I felt very clearly that I had to do something about this.
Armed with her passion, Jane wrote a detailed summary and found lawyers willing to take Keyser's case for free. In December of 2008, after spending more than 15 years in prison,
You seated?
Josh finally got what he wanted. Judge Richard Callahan agreed to review his case. Witness after witness testified for Josh,
They followed her. They got the wrong guy.
including a tearful Chantel Kreider.
I regret it horribly. It affects me every day. An innocent man has been locked up, and he doesn't deserve to be.
But will it be enough to convince the judge to order a new trial? Two long months passed after the court hearing. Josh Keezer sat in prison, afraid to get his hopes up. And then on February 17, 2009, Judge Richard Callahan made an unusual ruling. Instead of ordering a new trial, he went ahead and declared Josh Keezer an innocent man.
As you sit here today, do you believe that Josh Keezer had anything to do with the murder of Michelle Lawless?
Absolutely not. I believe he's innocent, and I so found.
I let out this just roar. I mean, I just let it out. I yelled. I shouted with everything I had in me.
The very next day, Keezer walked out of prison, a free man for the first time in 16 years. He hugged his mother. He hugged Jane Williams, the social worker who had championed his case.
For years, he had to carry that he was a monster killer who brutally killed someone, which was not true.
And then he turned to Sheriff Rick Walter.
I wanted to thank him personally for what he'd done.
Both the prosecutor, Kenneth Hulshoff, and former Sheriff Bill Farrell have declined our requests for interviews. But in court documents, Farrell denies any wrongdoing.
Here we go. Take care.
And Hulshoff has said publicly he still believes Keezer's guilty. What do you think of that?
I think we done the right thing, and we move on and try to find out who done this.
Sheriff Walter still believes it was someone Michelle knew.
There's people of suspicion. We have right now about 6 or 7 different people that, you know, we're definitely interested in and we're looking at.
On that list,
Still today, I'm a #1 suspect in this murder. Am or am I not?
that's right, Mark Abbott, once a star witness for the prosecution. Now, Abbott's account that night raises questions. Questions starting with what he says he did when he found Michelle in her car.
And I just reached in the window when I grabbed her, and she came up.
What's wrong with that story? The side window was only partly open. Not wide enough, says the sheriff, to fit Mark's story.
You could reach through the window and grab somebody and set them up, not the way he said.
Did you kill Michelle Lawless?
No.
But there are a lot of people in this town who think you did.
A lot. A lot of people think I did.
I've also spoken to a number of people who've said you've bragged about it.
One of them was Ron Burton, a gun shop owner and longtime friend of Abbott's family. Burton remembers one chilling conversation with Abbott soon after Keezer was convicted.
He said, and I quote, "I took care of the bitch." And that's what he said, and he kind of had a smirky little grin on his face, and I'll never forget it because it shocked me.
Do you think he was kidding?
No, I don't.
Abbott denies ever saying that.
You're saying that Ron Burton is lying?
Lying.
There's also an affidavit from a narcotics detective who says Abbott told him that he didn't kill Michelle, but watched another man do it.
Were you there when someone else killed her?
No.
Did
He's full
you?
of
Why would so many people think you're capable of something like this that they'd point the finger?
I don't know what I did to him to anger him like that.
They're pointing the finger at you. Why?
I do not have an answer to that. I do not.
Abbott says he never met Michelle, but her close friend Melissa Gaines has a different recollection.
Did Michelle ever mention a Mark Abbott?
Yes. Yes, she did. She had said that she had met Mark Abbott, one of the Abbott boys, and thought he was a good-looking guy. And I told her, Michelle, you know, don't mess with either one of the Abbott boys. You know better than that.
In fact, there are 2 Abbott boys. They're identical twins.
Those boys, they would change places with each other, so, you know, from little boys on. You can't tell them apart.
Which is why to this day, the sheriff isn't absolutely sure which Abbott brother came in to report finding Michelle. 2 people in the sheriff's office say it was Matt.
So, was Matt Abbott involved? Was Mark involved? Matt said he never was, but yet we got 2 people that says he walked in and reported it. They have him down as Matt Abbott. So, you know, that could be a conspiracy, couldn't it?
Mark and Matt Abbott were later convicted on federal drug charges in 1997, making some people in town wonder if maybe Michelle Lawless had something on them.
There's a lot of theories out there. One of them was that she had information on their drug dealing, and there's a lot of money, involved in that, and that's motive enough for somebody to kill somebody.
Along with Abbott, Sheriff Walter hasn't ruled out Leon Lamb, the last person to admit to seeing Michelle Lawless alive.
Did you have anything to do with Michelle Lawless's death?
Not at all. I loved her.
You know that your DNA was found under her fingernails.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you explain that?
We had sex that night, and we were both pretty passionate people, so, time and again, she did scratch me during sex.
But Leon confirms what Michelle wrote in her diary, that the couple had frequent arguments, especially when he saw her with other men. And in fact, the night of her murder, Michelle had run into Leon while she was driving around with male friends.
Did that bother you?
It did. Because we had been together for 3 years.
Did she leave the house upset with you or angry with you at all?
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, we hugged, kissed, and said our goodnights, and that was it.
These are only 2 of a half-dozen suspects.
Looked like from the pictures that there was some blood transfer.
And Sheriff Walter needs more than theories and speculation.
This is kind of like behind the knee, right?
He needs hard evidence. To find it, he went all the way to the Netherlands, to a place known as the Crime Farm. Halfway around the world from Scott County, Missouri, there's a rustic house in the Netherlands known as the Crime Farm.
I came here in hopes of find some DNA. We're looking to maybe get some skin cells off of some of the clothing.
But they did. And they were.
Dutch forensic experts Selma and Richard Eikelenboom began the painstaking process of trying to find a killer's DNA.
Jeans, 1 pair.
Using techniques not widely available in the U.S., Richard first examines the material with crime scopes.
What we're looking for is small stains,
which emit different kinds of light to locate normally invisible spots of skin cells or other material.
Is this actually the fingers up here?
It's like this.
Those spots will be tested for what's called touch or grip DNA.
Number 1.
They'll compare what they find with DNA samples from the people of interest on the sheriff's list. They didn't have Mark Abbott's DNA, so they're using a sample from his identical twin, Matt.
Is the DNA of identical twins identical, completely identical?
Normally it is.
The Dutch team made an intriguing discovery that raises even more doubts about Mark Abbott's story of how he pulled Michelle upright in her seat that night.
And where exactly did you grab her?
On the shoulder, kind of. Might have been by the breast a little bit. I can't fully remember, but I know it wasn't too far,
If I were the driver.
Yeah, your shoulder.
This shoulder?
So, yeah, on that side.
But the Dutch couple say they found what is likely Abbott DNA in other places on Lawless's clothes.
I mean, did you just grab the shoulder? Did you grab more of her body to pull her up? Do you remember?
I just grabbed her shoulder.
I know what he said, where he touched her. If it's somewhere else that it was impossible for him to touch her, and that's where we find it, then he has a problem.
In December 2009, Mark Abbott was moved temporarily from the federal prison where he was doing time on those drug charges to Missouri for a hearing on an unrelated charge.
Walter?
Hey.
How you doing? I see you got a lot of busy things going on around here. Huh?
You're famous.
Yeah, thanks. I can't thank nobody but you.
Abbott agreed to talk to Sheriff Walter about the Lawless case, even offering his own DNA sample, which was shipped off to the crime farm for additional testing. And what about Leon Lamb? The Dutch confirmed that Lamb's DNA is mixed with Michelle's blood that was found under her fingernails. No surprise, since Lamb says he had sex with Michelle earlier the night she was killed. But they don't find anyone else's DNA, and that is something of a surprise, since it appears Michelle fought her attacker.
She wouldn't take anything off anybody. She would fight if she needed to. And, you know, I believe she fought for her life that night.
A reason to continue looking at Leon, says Sheriff Walter, although he points out Michelle may not have made contact with her assailant.
If she grabbed their clothing, she's not going to get any of their skin cells. You know, unless she got them in the face, there's a good chance that we're not going to get anything.
So far, none of the team's findings point conclusively to any one suspect, but Selma Eichenbaum believes the findings can help the sheriff get someone to talk.
This DNA results, it can become a leverage for the sheriff to get things starting up again.
Sheriff Walter is hoping that those DNA results and further investigation will allow him to go to a grand jury soon.
A lot of people are really scared about this case.
Who are they afraid of, or what are they afraid of?
Maybe they're afraid of the people that done this.
Six months after Josh Keyser was released, we took him back to the now closed prison where he served most of his nearly 16 years in custody. It's now being redeveloped as a museum and office park.
What's it like to be in here?
Strangely, way too familiar.
And where'd you sleep?
Right here. I lived in this cell. Swept this cell, mopped this cell.
When you look around here, how would you describe your life now?
Oh, I am blessed and highly favored. I'm living the dream.
Josh got a job working construction.
I would like to,
His own apartment.
Controlling me and owning me all these years.
And he often speaks about his experience advocating for judicial reform. He remains close with Jane Williams and enjoys strong support from his church community. He insists he is not bitter.
I don't look back at my 16 years in prison and get hateful and angry about all of it. It does not excuse what was done to me. There is no excuse for that. It was wrong, it was evil.
Which might explain why he was so eager to assist with the prison renovation.
Do you believe that Michelle's death will be solved? That you will find out who killed her?
I have to believe that.
Yeah.
I really do.
To this day, Michelle Lawless's family remains tormented by the mystery of her senseless murder.
Whoever took her life needs to pay for what they did. It's not going to bring her back, I know that, but it will help all of us rest a little easier.
I owe that to her family to find out who done it. I owe it to this community to find out, because if there's somebody that's got away with murder, they need to pay for their crime.